a popular UI library pushed a breaking change and took down our form validation in production. With Shadcn/UI, you own the code, no surprise updates. The article mentions support for Tailwind CSS v4, but the npx Shadcn at latest init command may produce a Tailwind config TS that is incompatible with Tailwind v4's new CSS first configuration. As of early 2025, Shadcn/UI's default init still generates a Tailwind v3 style config. If you are using Tailwind v4, you must manually migrate the CSS variables and remove the Tailwind config TS file, relying on it import tailwinds in your CSS. Always check the Shadcn/UI documentation for the latest compatibility notes. The article mentions that Shadcn/UI components are built on Radix UI primitives, but does not show how to create a custom component using a Radix primitive directly. Here is an example of a custom toggle button using Radix's toggle primitive, styled with Tailwind and integrated with the Shadcn/UI theme variables. Since Shadcn/UI copies source code into your project, you are responsible for updating components when new versions are released. Unlike a traditional NPM package, there is no NPM update to get bug fixes or accessibility improvements. To stay current, periodically run npx Shadcn at latest add component again. It will overwrite the existing file or manually diff the changes from the Shadcn/UI GitHub repository. This is a trade-off. You avoid breaking changes, but must actively manage updates. Let's break down Next.js with Shadcn/UI, component library quick start, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. Shadcn/UI is not a traditional component library. It's a CLI tool that copies beautifully designed, accessible components directly into your project. You own every line of code, so there's no dependency lock-in. In production, Shadcn/UI saves teams from the dreaded Upgrade Friday, where a minor version bump breaks the entire UI. Since you own the code, you control updates. Start by scaffolding a Next.js project with TypeScript and Tailwind. Then run the Shadcn init command to set up the configuration. This creates a components, JSON file, and a utility function for merging Tailwind classes. Run this command in your Next.js project root. It will create the necessary configuration files and set up the component directory. Shadcn/UI is modular. Add only the components you need with the add command. The CLI copies the source file and installs any dependencies automatically. Here are some common components to add. Each command copies a single file into your components/UI directory. Shadcn/UI uses CSS variables for theming. You can customize colors, border radii, and spacing in your global CSS. Dark mode is supported with a dark class. This is the default theme CSS. The root block defines light mode variables, and the dark block overrides them for dark mode. Components automatically use these variables. Shadcn/UI integrates seamlessly with React Hook Form and Zod. The form component provides structure, and form field connects to React Hook Form's control for validation. This is a complete form with two fields, validation and submission. The Zod schema infers TypeScript types, eliminating duplication. Shadcn/UI components use state and effects, so they need the use client directive. Keep data fetching in server components and pass data as props to client components for optimal performance. This is a client component that uses Shadcn components. It receives data as props from a parent server component. Next.js server actions allow you to run server-side code directly from client components. Combine them with Shadcn forms for seamless mutations without API routes. This login form uses a server action for submission. The useFormStatus hook provides the pending state to disable the button and show a loading indicator. Shadcn components are unstyled, so you use Tailwind utilities for layout. The sheet component provides a mobile slide-in navigation. This layout uses a hidden desktop nav and a mobile sheet menu. The asChild prop on sheet trigger allows you to use a custom button while preserving accessibility. Shadcn/UI supports dark mode out of the box. Use the Next Themes library to handle theme toggling and persistence, including system preference detection. This toggle button switches between light and dark themes. The icons animate with Tailwind's dark variants. Shadcn's copy-paste approach keeps bundles lean, but you can further optimize by dynamically importing heavy components like calendars. This dynamically imports the calendar component only when needed, reducing the initial bundle size. Test Shadcn components like any React component. They use Radix primitives, so they have predictable DOM structures. Use JSTAX to catch accessibility regressions. These tests verify that the button renders, responds to clicks, and can be disabled. Standard React testing library practices work well. Deploying a Next.js app with Shadcn is no different from any other Next.js app. Shadcn components are just source files, so no special deployment steps are needed. This configuration enables standalone output for Docker deployments and allows images from example.com. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The team imported a Shadcn dialog directly into a page-level server component. Radix's dialog uses React hooks internally, which are not allowed in server components. The build failed because hooks like useState can only run on the client. A Shadcn dialog component was imported directly into a server component, causing a build failure because Radix UI primitives use React hooks. The fix wraps the dialog in a separate client component with the useClient directive. The fix is to isolate the interactive component in its own client component. By adding useClient to a wrapper, the server component remains a server component, and the dialog works correctly. This is the exact mistake from the incident. Importing a Shadcn dialog directly into a server component causes a build error because Radix primitives use React hooks. Always wrap them in a client component. Barrel files prevent tree shaking. Always import directly from the component file, like import button, from @components/UI/button. If you hardcode a color like BG Blue 500, it won't change when you switch to dark mode. Always use theme variables like BG primary or text foreground. To debug common issues, use Next Bundle Analyzer to check for barrel imports and JSTAX to catch accessibility problems. Always verify theme variables are used instead of hard-coded colors. Let's run through some common interview questions. How does Shadcn/UI differ from Material UI? Shadcn copies source code, you own it. Material UI is a package with lock-in. Can Shadcn/UI be used with Next.js Pages Router? Yes, but App Router is recommended for RSC support. How do you customize a Shadcn component? Edit the source file directly in components/UI/. And a few frequently asked questions. Is Shadcn/UI a package? No, it's a CLI that copies source files into your project. Does Shadcn/UI work with the app router? Yes, but components need useClient directive. How do I update a Shadcn component? Manually copy the new version from the registry or edit the file directly. Let's recap the key takeaways. Shadcn copies source files, you own every line. Add only components you need for lean bundles. Use CSS variables for scalable theming. Combine with React hook form and Zod for type-safe forms. Ready to go deeper? Up next, TurboPack optimization in Next.js 16, complete guide, then React server component security, protecting RSC in Next.js, then Next.js view transitions, React 19.2 native animation guide, and Next.js monorepo with Turborpo, enterprise architecture. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.